Okay, we can start. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's EU DisinfoLab webinar called Ethics in the Fight Against Disinformation from Theory to Practice. My name is Inès Gentil. I'm a project manager at EU DisinfoLab based in Belgium. Before we begin, let me remind you that this webinar is being recorded and that it will be available shortly on our YouTube channel alongside our past sessions. For questions, please use Slido, not the Zoom Q&A. You can scan the QR code on screen or go to slido.com and enter the code #disinfo. We'll come back to your questions during the Q&A at the end of the presentations. We can start already with a few short polls to know a bit more about you. First of all, we would like to know if you could tell us where you're joining us from today by responding to the Slido. Helsinki, nice. Berlin. Riga, great. Brussels, Belgium. Scotland, welcome. Okay, many people from Berlin, Helsinki, Brussels, great. Now we can move to the second question. If you could tell us which sector do you represent today? NGO, civil society, academia, media. Great. Okay, for those who are new here, EU DisinfoLab is an independent organization based in Brussels, dedicated to gathering knowledge and expertise on disinformation. We support community building efforts across sectors working on countering disinformation, and we regularly organize these webinars to share knowledge and improve dialogue across disciplines. Today's session tackles a question that runs through everything we do in this field and that doesn't always get the attention it deserves, which is the ethical dimensions of fighting disinformation. Countering disinformation is rarely straightforward. The tools we use, whether content moderation, fact-checking, OSINT investigations, can help address harmful manipulation. But they also raise some questions, like when does removing content protect people? What does algorithmic transparency actually require from platforms? What are we risking when we use open source methods? And that they are adopted and even weaponized by the very actors we investigate. These are not abstract questions. They are decisions that journalists, researchers, civic actors, and AI practitioners face in their work every day. And they're becoming more urgent as new investigative methods emerge and as concepts like transparency are increasingly instrumentalized by authoritarian actors as a performance of rigor rather than a genuine commitment to it. To explore these questions, we have developed a new short course, which is called Ethics in the Fight Against Disinformation, Practical Dilemmas for Media and Civic Actors, as part of our Periscope project, which will be presented today for the first time. The course is designed to give practitioners a structured ethical framework to navigate these dilemmas in their own work. I'll give you just a quick word about the project Periscope. So Periscope is a cross-border initiative funded by the EU that supports citizens, educators, journalists, and young people to address and counter disinformation, gendered hate speech, and FIMI through inclusive media literacy, civic engagement, and responsible use of AI. At the end of today's session, we will ask all participants to complete a short survey as part of the project's requirements. So please do stay until the end. To start introducing the speakers of today's sessions, we are pleased to welcome three dear colleagues today. The first one will be Giovanna Sessa, which is our research manager at EU DisinfoLab. She holds a PhD in political science and has worked for research foundations, think tanks, and as a university teaching assistant. Her research focuses on the use of disinformation in political communication, gender-based attacks, and international crises, including FIMI. She has recently been working on DSA enforcement, linking research and policy implementation. Then we'll have Georgios Terzis, who is a professor in communications and ethics at the Brussels School of Governance, the Vrije Universiteit Brussels. He did postdoctoral research at the University of Pennsylvania and Oxford on media and security, and has spent more than 25 years researching and teaching media ethics, journalism, disinformation, and risk communication. He's the founding chair of the Journalism Studies section of the European Communication Research and Education Association. And finally, we'll welcome Nelly Pailleux, who is Chief Operations Officer and co-founder of CheckFirst, a Finnish organization tackling information manipulation through technology and research. She works at the intersection of digital investigations, information integrity, and platform accountability, and has trained journalists in OSINT. She's also a founding member of OSINT, the NGO created to promote open source intelligence guidelines and good practices. So we are in good hands, as you can see. Thank you all for joining us today. I'll now hand over to Maya Giovanna first to open the first substantive part of the session with the presentation of the new short course. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Let me share my screen really quickly, which you should be able to see now. All right. Okay. So today I have the pleasure to present, as Ines mentioned, an e-course that we have created focusing on the ethical dilemmas in detecting and responding to disinformation. Of course, I will give a quick overview. There is much more content than that. I would like to focus on, first of all, some myths regarding counter-disinformation, then delve into platform accountability for a little bit, and give some basic information about responsible use of AI, and hopefully draw some conclusions. So without further ado, let me debunk a few false dilemmas that as researchers working on disinformation, we often encounter. And the first one is that counter-disinformation is not censorship. It is actually the opposite, considering that basically an environment that is filled with disinformation is one that really hinders freedom of expression, especially within the most vulnerable categories that are often targeted. Let's think about women, queer communities, minorities, and so on. The second one is that fact checkers are not arbiters of truth. This is an expression that we often hear, the idea that news verifiers are able to decide whether something is true or whether something stays online. This is not the goal of the job. Information verification actually focuses on facts rather than opinions. So it is possible to debunk a false use of data, or whether an event took place or not given available evidence. It is not possible to debunk an opinion, nor is it the interest of fact checkers. And basically, most of the times, fact checkers do not remove the content itself. They just provide additional contextual information so that people don't get lost and over flooded with false news. Of course, public interest should always be the guiding principle when it comes to exposing disinformation. And it is also a very delicate balance between the right to inform people, so to expose falsities, and also the unintended consequences sometimes of giving it too much amplification. So definitely not an easy task. Moving on with another dilemma, we have this idea that disinformation is often meaning that a content is true or false. Well, there is nuance to that. Let's say that disinformation creates a cognitive comfort that simplifies the world in good and evil. However, this is not what happens in real life. And most importantly, also, disinformation has become far more sophisticated, so that the most effective disinformation is not 100% fabricated. It takes sometimes elements of truth, it distorts them instead of inventing it. And that's why it's so credible and it sticks with people. Moreover, we often have an over-reliance and focus on content. Content itself is not everything. We should also pay attention at behavior that conveys said content. Here on the slide, you can see a screenshot of two fake accounts that have been used in a very big Russian disinformation campaign called Doppelganger. And as you can see, here what is interesting is not the content as much as the common elements of these fake accounts. They have the same profile photo. Now the screenshot is very small, but otherwise you would be able to see that they basically published virtually at the same time in a coordinated manner the exact same content, just translated in different languages. There are also the other suspicious elements, like the fact that these are very recent pages with no likes and followers. So again, behavior can be a very good indication of manipulation and coordinated inauthentic activity. Moving on, this is one of my favorite. Freedom of speech is not freedom of reach. And the fact that you can say something, we often speak about borderline content or content that is so-called awful but lawful. So it can stay online. However, this does not mean that it should receive an artificial amplification through, for instance, platform algorithms, which tend to reward engagement with negative, extreme, polarizing, audience dividing content. And last but not least, although there are some very strong pressures to make you think otherwise, regulation is not a cage. Actually, regulating online spaces, it's what makes them safe and what makes the systems accountable. Speaking of which, at the DisinfoLab, we do extensive work on Digital Services Act enforcement. The Digital Services Act, or DSA, has been labeled a sort of digital constitutions for platforms operating within the EU. It's a very interesting and unique piece of legislation, which basically works both on creating platform accountability for their functioning and the content that they host online, but it also provides users with agency, with the possibility to basically respond to platforms, to report content, to challenge their decisions, to receive explanations for decisions that involve them, and also to sometimes get access to platform data. This is a very important step forward towards accountability and transparency and ultimately democratic values. Speaking of platform accountability, in the unit you will find some explanations about recurrent platform manipulation mechanisms, which are very interesting in order to empower users and to be aware of the mechanisms of online spaces. These are, let's say, features that are embedded in platform design, and sometimes they're not good or bad, they just are. And however, they can be exploited and manipulated, and this is why we should be really sensitive at how these tools are used to convey this information. For instance, platforms are regulated by algorithmically defined recommender systems. If you think about the other potential videos you might like on YouTube or accounts you may know on Instagram, that's how the practical use of a recommender system. However, the negative aspect of it is that sometimes it pushes users into echo chambers, into less diversification of content. And when we are dealing with the harmful or disinformative content, this might be problematic because it seems like that's the only thing that the user sees. Dark patterns are a world in itself, and they are all of those design mechanisms on platforms that basically force a certain type of behavior. Let's say the scarcity approach, in which if I put an item in my virtual cart on a marketplace, maybe I will get a few notifications saying that this is the last available item, or it's the last one at that special price and I should hurry and buy. Well, this is a dark pattern. Or other mechanisms that have been, for instance, blamed, especially on platforms such as TikTok, by the European Commission, as the addictive design that keeps the infinite scroll behavior that is so harmful, especially for younger people. And last but not least, we should never forget about monetization incentives, because ultimately platforms are not charities and they are moved by a very specific business model. In terms of completing our understanding of manipulation techniques, we should also be aware that platforms are increasingly trying to also avoid said responsibilities that they have towards users. They're doing it in many ways by weakening, for instance, content moderation systems. And this is very dangerous because on the slide you will see the example of Twitter X, but it's not the only one. For instance, when a platform removes the opportunity for users to report content as false or misleading, well, they are also taking away visibility from our understanding of how big the problem is. It doesn't make the problem go away, it just takes away our tools to measure it. The same goes with the dismantling trust and safety teams, or also ultimately a very recurrent tendency to transfer responsibility to users. Now, don't get me wrong, media and digital literacy are crucial tools. However, we should understand their limits in the sense that it is not up to the users to create a safe platform, considering that these are very big design mechanisms at stake. So again, this is why platform accountability is crucial. I will say just a few words about a critical and responsible use of AI. The premise fundamentally is that AI is not neutral. AI is the product of the data that it has been trained on, and it is trained to provide plausible, responsible, not truthful responses. And for instance, if you look at the slide, this is a screenshot of my question to ChatGPT to create the image of a CEO. As you can see, it produced the picture of a middle-aged white man. Now, it probably reflects the society we live in. It definitely does reflect the data it's been trained on. Moreover, platforms and AIs, so LLMs, chatbots, the ones that we use in our daily lives, are trained to prioritize approval and harmony rather than accuracy. So they will always tell us that we are geniuses, that we ask very interesting and important questions, and sometimes it tends to agree with us rather than providing us with truthful information if it might contradict our worldviews. Finally, AIs can create false references that we also call hallucinations, AI slopes, and they are also vulnerable to external manipulation by malign actors. So apologies for this very quick overview. I hope I interested you in trying to know more about our entire e-learning course. In terms of concluding remarks, what I hope that you can take away from this presentation is that disinformation is a systemic feature of the digital environment. Our goal is not to eradicate all of this information from the internet. That would be simply impossible, but it is to navigate these challenges with critical thinking and resilience, which are a practice. They're not something that are ever acquired once and for all. We should be aware of the importance of user rights, which allow to create pressure on stakeholders such as platforms, but also policymakers and so on, but also being aware of the limits of the fact that the responsibility should rest with the higher powers, let's say. So accountability is crucial, but accountability needs enforcement, not to remain a beautiful piece of paper. And last but not least, when countering disinformation, we should always be aware of the many ethical challenges it poses. And I will now leave the floor to my colleagues. Thank you so much for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will try to keep it short in order to have some time to answer your questions. My name is Nelly Pailleux. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at CheckFirst, as Ines introduced me before. CheckFirst, we are a Finnish company working on fostering a culture of resilience against online information manipulation. And we particularly do this through OSINT investigation. which is the reason why CheckFirst is one of the organizations which co-founded OSINT that I am going to present to you today. So basically, OSINT is a set of guidelines for public interest OSINT investigation. It takes the form of a Finnish NGO. I saw there were a lot of people from Helsinki, so hi fellows from Finland. This is an NGO created to promote OSINT guidelines. The objective of these guidelines is not to propose a unilateral approach on how to conduct OSINT research and investigations, but more to support organizations working in the public interest and having a common ethical framework for us to adopt or to adapt based on these requirements. As I said, OSINT is an NGO which has a certain numbers of signatories. We now have 10 people, and I will give you all the contact detail in the end in order for you to maybe join us if you're interested. The reason why OSINT was created is that because, as you might have seen during recent years, there was a boom in individuals, private sectors, CSOs using OSINT to expose information manipulation campaigns, information manipulation sets, documenting human rights violation, protect electoral integrity, among other efforts, etc., etc. And this has delivered powerful effects because OSINT has been used to convict war criminals, to dismantle efforts to undermine democracy. But some of these actors also used OSINT techniques to, I would say, instrumentalize OSINT as an appeal to authority. In French, we say un argument d'autorité, which is a concept very well explained by Alain Donneville in his book OSINT, Enquête and Democracy, so investigation and democracy. And in order to maintain trust and credibility and ensure that innovation is accompanied by the understanding of a risk, we thought that we had to make efforts to strengthen the understanding and the application of ethical OSINT practice to ensure that people were able to distinguish quality OSINT, I would say, from bad OSINT or dark OSINT, as it is sometimes called, and also support practitioners to navigate the ethical dilemmas they face in delivering the impact. The main goal of OSINT is that to have the initiatives, resources, toolkits, methodologies, which exist in a patchwork everywhere on the internet, to have it on the same platform, and to also get inspired from initiatives like the Berkeley Protocol, which have demonstrated the value of this kind of effort to articulate this practice. And also, one important point is that the NGO is run by practitioners for practitioners. As you saw, all the signatories are people who are running OSINT investigation as their day-to-day work. And these guidelines are also always being questioned, debated among us. So this is a very lively and vivid community. The OSINT is driven by 5 core principles. The first one is, of course, accuracy. So the investigative processes should be objective and reliable with an aim to build trust in research, the findings and the people working on this kind of research. The research should be clear, self-explanatory, replicable, and written in a way that makes it possible for others to evaluate and replicate. The second principle is community. So the idea is to keep in mind that we are part of a wider community that includes past and future research. I think I emphasized enough the community parts before, so I'm going to go quickly on this one. There is also a principle of diversity, which is which is that we need input and inclusive participation in OSINT research and investigative process, and to have a reflective approach to identifying research gaps and limitation, and a willingness to seek continuous improvements from a diverse range of stakeholders. Fourth principle is accountability. Being transparent, open, accountable for the processes followed and the action taken within an open source investigation, recognizing the responsibility towards both the data we use, but also the subjects and the audience, and to foresee the potential impact of our work, as Georgios mentioned before. And the last one is balance and responsibility. So striving for the appropriate balance between technical capability and best serving the public interest, focusing on what should be done and what can be done technically, by, for example, seeking to minimize the risk of causing harms to individual and the society at large. So these are the principles that drives us at OSINT, and in concrete terms, this applies to day-to-day work, as I mentioned before. And we have several examples. I choose the one that I know the best, which is the one we are using at CheckFirst, which is the operation assessment framework. So on the OSINT guidelines, the chapter 4 specified that the outputs should be accessible, comprehensible for the target audience, and presented in the clearest way possible. So what we do at CheckFirst when we release an investigation is that there is a public interest assessment for this publication. It is made of 4 different reviewers, so 2 internal, 2 people who are working in the company, but also 2 external, 2 people who are working on assessing on a grid of different criteria whether this fits the requirements or not. The criteria are in 4 categories: the quality assessment, the accuracy, sampling and bias of the data particularly, and the attribution. We have 18 measurement points that I will share afterwards, and as well as external data verification. So this is a system which is pretty similar from the research one, which is a peer review system, which enables us also to have an overview on how we work, and to have an external assessment on how we contribute to the public good or not by releasing this investigation or not. If you scan the QR code, you have the 18 measurement points verified, and so you will see that this leads to a score to assess, as I said, the quality, the accuracy, and the replicability of the investigation. Please feel free to use this operation assessment framework in your day-to-day work if that can be of any interest for you, and we are also very happy to have your feedback on how this helps you work, and if you found things that could be done better or that would fit another needs for another types of organization. So this is what we've done for all our investigation. The latest we have been published is a report on the information in operation troops. Maybe people who are familiar with CheckFirst have seen this report. If not, I will really encourage you to have a look and read it. And there is also an EU DisinfoLab webinar on this topic presenting the finding of the report. So this report, for example, has been submitted to the Operation Assessment Framework and had the notes, and the reason why we are doing that and building on this enables us to augment the transparency on the way we work, and which enables also to gain trust. And we have seen a difference between like before and after with an engagement of particularly a journalistic engagement of the people when we are releasing this kind of investigation, and also raising the audiences. So this also enabled us to have an overview on how these reports could be analyzed through an ethic lens and transmitted. I think I'm reaching out of time. So that was pretty quick. I hope this was clear. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to send us an email on info@osint.eu. And if you want to have a look at the guidelines, they are online on osint.eu, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the three of you. A lot of content there, and I think it shows exactly why ethics can't be treated as an afterthought in the field, but needs to be embedded in the work from the very beginning. Let's now open the floor to your questions. We have about 15 minutes. Just a quick reminder to submit your questions via Slido and not the Zoom Q&A. You can scan the QR code on the screen or go to slido.com and enter the code #disinfo. And if you have any reflections, experiences, pushback based on your own practice or experience, do not hesitate to share as well. We are always happy to hear more perspectives. Let's start with the first question highlighted here to the three of you. Can fact-checking and moderation ever be truly neutral, or do they inevitably reflect the political, cultural, or economic biases of the institutions behind them? I don't know who wants to start with this one.
Fact-checking, however, I would maybe make a slight difference, because the principle is that, as Maria Giovanna said in her presentation, this is not opinion, this is supposed to be based on facts. And so maybe not neutral or objective, but this can be science-based or based on several studies that have been through a quality assessment with general scientific reliability, rather than just an opinion which someone is forming.
And if I may add something, maybe the question is not really whether the practice itself is neutral. It is whether it is conducted in an unbiased way. And for this, as much as possible, the community has created guidelines, such as the ones that Nelly mentions for open source intelligence, but also I would like to mention the European fact-checking standards and network that created them, in which, as much as possible, there tries to be a system that guarantees checks and balances, that guarantees open correction, that guarantees transparent methodologies that are publicly replicable. So these indeed are the efforts that we should focus on, I think.
Next question, I guess, is about algorithmic amplification. You think that platforms like Twitter promote specific accounts on purpose? That's how I understand it. If Maria Giovanna or Nelly maybe wants to react.
Yeah, maybe I can start on answering this question, which is pretty broad. If we get back to disclaimer, I don't believe in the fact that there is someone like Elon Musk playing with a little wheel behind the computer saying, okay, today I'm going to promote this account, and then the next day I will promote another person. I think that's a little bit more complicated, and I think that recommended systems depends on logic of engagement. And engagement is reached by creating a lot of emotions, particularly negative emotions. So they on purpose promote specific accounts. I don't think that this would be correct, but many studies proved that as As Maria Giovanna said before, platforms are not charities, right? They are working with a financial system, with a business model that needs users to stay on the platform to consume information, to consume advertising, etc., etc. In order for you as users to stay on the platform, you have to be attracted by the content. And in order to be attracted by the content, this content is going to be polarizing or triggering emotions like I don't know, anger mostly. So this is the way it's working. This is also why we have very good comms people who are working on this kind of topics and who are really, really good at that. And specific accounts that are just doing rage bait or clickbait or engagement bait, because they can also themselves in the end monetize it. I don't know if that answers the question, but this is my opinion on that.
Great, thank you. Very clear. Maybe we can jump to a final question because the time is running out. Many in this field are underfunded, underprotected, and under legal pressure. Does the ethical framework change when the people applying it are themselves vulnerable? Maybe Maria Giovanna?
Yes. I think that throughout the tools that we mentioned today, whether the guideline standards or the e-course that we have created, there is continuous reference to the importance of the safety and well-being of those involved in these type of activities. Of fighting disinformation, both on the mental side, people that are often exposed to vicarious trauma and very disturbing content, and on the really legal protection safe side. So we know that the community is often faced with slaps or can even receive threats and other forms of attacks by malign actors. So there is definitely a topic of protection, and there is definitely a topic, as always, as also someone who works for the third sector of sustainability in funding, that needs to be, of course, addressed. Ultimately, I mean, I can only agree basically with the question, and also say that something that I often repeat, in the sense that as a defender community, we often are perceived as parts of a very horizontal framework of organizations of different stakeholders working together, where sometimes we get to sit at the same tables with the legislators, with the platform and policy people and so on. Let's not remember that there is a very different dynamic in terms of power and in terms of protection that different organizations from civil society have.
Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the session. Thank you to you three for the great presentations, and to Lucas and Heini behind the scenes as well. Now, if you can just take a few minutes to complete this survey, which is part of our Periscope project. It will take just a few seconds to complete, and it would really help the project, so please do it. Regarding today's webinar, the recording will be available shortly on our YouTube channel, as usual, and you can also revisit all of our past sessions. And if today's discussion interested you and you want to know more about what the speakers presented, feel free to reach out to them directly. And about the short course that Maria Giovanna presented, we'll be sharing more information on how to access it very soon, so stay tuned. And also don't miss our upcoming webinars. You can see the full schedule on our website, and on the screen you can see the two next ones. On the 28th of May, very soon, and the 4th of June on DSA enforcement. I think that's it. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon, and maybe at our conference in person in Vilnius this October. Thank you. Bye-bye.